Hal, tell us a little about your work. What you're an author. What do you?
Well, my first big book was Bike Club, which I don't have a copy of here, which came out not quite about 8 years ago, and it was one of the first. It was a vampire book, and it was one of the first gay vampire books written. There were 2 or 3 other ones, but mine was a comedy. And it wasn't a silly comedy. It was a funny, sophisticated comedy. It's actually satire, but you're not allowed to say satire in publishing because that's a case of death. And it did phenomenally well. I mean, it was a huge bestseller, and it was a lot of fun to do. And so that was my first one. And I actually wrote it as a response to the whole AIDS crisis. Because what I felt was that AIDS which back then was still death. I mean, if you got it, you were gone, in most cases. And I wrote it because I felt that we had lost so many talented people and so many talented, so many prospects cut short by the disease. But one of the other things that the gay community was losing, I felt, was its sense of humor. We were taking things very seriously. And there's this wonderful tradition of what we call camp humor. And I thought there was a place for that. And so I wrote Bike Club, and all of the old farts, my age, kind of read it and went, I remember this, and all the young kids thought they discovered something entirely new. And so it did very well. And then what happened was my husband died very suddenly of food poisoning. Weird. And then I had a series of not great experiences with a couple of publishers. And so it took me almost a decade before the sequel to Bike Club, The Trouble with Harry, came out, which is a werewolf book, which is very, I mean, Bike Club's funny, but this is very funny. I think Horror World called us the funniest horror novel, ... ever.
Wow.
And intentionally funny. And in the interim, I wrote a couple of paranormal romances, which guy on guy, because that's what I know and that's what sells, which I refer to as supernatural smut, which my publisher was not thrilled with, but so that's the work. So, other questions?
Does your work, being kind of a niche market somewhat, does it apply to people who aren't homosexual?
My fan club, when Bike Club came out, was 40, the demographic, my fans and my fan club, but also the fans, were late 30s, 40 to 50, early 50s, women.
Okay.
Generally married, generally in the Midwest and the North. I mean, that's who was reading it. But Bike Club came out before Paranormal Romance. Paranormal Romance was a couple years later. So these same women that are reading all that paranormal romance stuff were just eaten up by Club. I mean, they just loved it because it was kind of dirty, but not really dirty.
Okay.
It was just kind of like forbidden because it was 2 guys. And there's no sex in Bike Club, and there's no sex in Harry. I mean, there's a couple of implied scenes, but it was the demographic that then went on to make all of this paranormal romance stuff huge, huge. So, yes, non-gay people can read it and laugh.
So this is what you just published this.
Yeah, this one just published.
And when did that come out?
February, I think. February, yeah. And it's a monster. I mean, it's a big book. So
have you already started on something else yet, or are you looking at what you're going to start soon?
The problem when you're an author, unless you're writing full-time, and I'm not anymore, I did for a while, but with the economy and everything, we kind of had to go back to work. Because, I made a fortune on Bike Club, and you just don't get that kind of money anymore unless you're, a New York best-selling writer. I was a niche author. Yeah, I am. I've got the sequel to this, which is done and needs to be edited, which I just don't have time to do. I have 2 more paranormal romances that are fairly done. I have a wonderful new series that I think I may have a publisher for, about it. It's a superhero. It's kind of an anti-superhero story about a guy who's there's 2 novels in that so far. About a guy who's a superhero who just kind of doesn't want to be. He kind of resents it, and that's kind of fun. But there's always. I've been listening to Rick McCammon today, and Rick, all the stuff. He's like, there's not enough time, and there just isn't.
So is this your first time in Utah?
No, I came, when was it, 5 years ago for the World Horror Convention? Yeah.
What do you think about the state? What do you think about the city?
I got to tell you, I've been wanting to leave Los Angeles ever, which is kind of tough because you get, it's addictive. LA is very addictive. I mean, I recently moved from West Hollywood, which is where these are set, to Highland Park, which is like 9 miles and 45 minutes away because of the way our freeway system is. And I miss home. I mean, I want to move home. But, in the 2 years, rents have quintupled. I mean, an apartment that used to cost you, $1,000 a month now costs you $3,000 or $4,000. It's insane. So I'm kind of always looking for other places, maybe. I mean, I probably never will, and I can tell you, Salt Lake's kind of up there on the list. It's a great city. It just got voted like one of the most gay-friendly cities in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, you've got like the second or third largest per capita gay population. Gay, lesbian, bisexual. I'm old, so we're just a bunch of fags. But it's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. It's like one of the top in the country. I think I made him just. I think he has to run to the boys' room. Stop giggling. But I love Salt Lake, and if I weren't so tied to LA, I would be seriously investigating. But I know what's going to happen. I'll go home, I'll be bored, one day at work, and I'll say, oh, the hell with this, and I'll go into like property values in Salt Lake, and see what I can get for the amount of money that it would cost me to get like a Starbucks coffee in LA.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd like a double mocha. It's like at $350,000. Here you can buy a mansion.
So your work is gay and lesbian themed. So I would imagine that as an author writing pretty much in a niche like that, you're going to have your own struggles and challenges breaking into a market.
Yeah.
What kind of struggles have you had? I mean, what kind of advice would you have for someone who...
Gay novels are like vampire novels, okay? No matter when you take it to your agent or to an agent or to a publisher, the answer is always going to be, oh, well, 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago, gay or vampire, it was really hot. But we can't sell it right now. And you're always fighting against that. And it's because traditional publishing is always a year to 2 years behind what's on the shelves. So, yeah, you're fighting that, But these are people who are paid to say no. They get 500 million manuscripts, and they publish one. So you're fighting against that. I mean, I had a couple of agents. I was looking for a new agent. I had a couple of agents who, one of whom I sent a manuscript to on a Thursday, and she called me on Monday, having gotten my unlisted phone number. Agents don't call you. And she said, you're brilliant. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And I'm handsome, too. And she said, you've got the strongest voice in contemporary humor I've read. She said, I don't know what to do with it. And a lot of times it's really frustrating, Especially when you hand them the sales figures for your last book and say, I made $50,000, I made $100,000, publish it. And they look at you and they go, we're looking for something that's going to make us $5 million. So, so they pump, $1 million into the historian, and we all saw what happened with that,
So you find that your struggles are probably pretty common for anybody who's writing anything.
Yeah. Whatever so much comes across their desk. I was in the movie business for 30 years, and so much comes across the desk. You just want excuses to say no, so you can clear out a lot of it. So you can concentrate on what's there. And when you write, Karen Taylor, who's a wonderful writer, she wrote the Deidre Griffin series. It was paranormal romance years before anyone had ever heard of paranormal romance. And Karen said, and I've said it a couple times today, not only are we horror writers, that publishers and editors and marketing people are going to say, oh, horror doesn't sell. And yet you look on the bestseller list and there's always a horror book there. But we're the redheaded stepchild because we're not only horror writers, we're also vampire writers. And vampires are kind of like the joke of the horror community. And yet it's kind of our bread and butter. It's our stable trope. And I always find you're fighting against that too. Oh, well, you're just a vampire writer. And it's kind of...
But now apparently you're a werewolf, right?
But there are vampires in it.
Oh, okay.
You know, originally, I mean, I love the cover, but I originally wanted a cover of this book. I wanted it because the subtitle of Bike Club was A West Hollywood Vampire Novel. And I wanted it to be like a big cereal box. And I went to say, The Trouble with Harry by Hal Bodner, like with a cereal name, A West Hollywood Vampire Novel, ... with werewolves, like with extra marshmallows. And they said, no, we can't do that. I thought that'd be really cool. But, you know. Hal Bodner, you can pick up, I think I've got 4 books. Well, Bike Club, The Trouble with Harry are my 2 ones I'm known for, at www.wehovampire.com or on the ever-present Amazon. You can always pick us up in Amazon, where we can get big, hefty, thick books on Amazon, or we can get we have the Kindle editions out. So.
Oh, Kindle. Very
Yeah, we have Kindle editions, which is great.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks, Mr. Bodner.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you.
You too. Have a great rest of the day.
That was very funny. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
You just kind of
That was just
like
too-
honey, get him some depends.
Oh, this is-